It began in the tense dawn of a political storm, aircraft still grounded, presidential guards in disarray, when Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a lean figure in olive fatigues, interrupted his family breakfast to receive shattering news. Paratroopers loyal to an opaque faction backed by Paris were on the move, aiming to unseat Burkina Faso's transitional government before dawn could fully break, and what followed in the next 26 hours would redefine modern West African resistance to external meddling with relentless immediacy and iron resolve. Without hesitation, Traoré convened in a dim concrete hall with his closest lieutenants, voices clipped yet urgent, conspiratorial whispers spoken as if the walls had ears. He laid out the minimal verified intelligence. The French-backed officers planned to seize the presidential compound, isolate the interim leaders, and install a puppet regime subservient to European strategic interests masked as stability assistance. In that instant, Ibrahim didn't count his forces or his weapons. He evaluated only two questions: what needed to be done, and by whom. Almost without pause, he transmitted orders across the military chain: deploy loyalist battalions, secure critical radio towers to control the narrative, and mobilize civilian youth volunteers already aligned with the ruling junta. Simultaneously, he dispatched encrypted messages to sympathetic commanders in Bouaké, Banfora, and Kaya, urging them to lock down military checkpoints that ring the capital, effectively choking off any encroachment. As mid-morning churned into a tense afternoon, the city of Ouagadougou pulsed with anticipation. Rumors of troop movements spread like wildfire through WhatsApp groups and market chatter. Traoré anticipated the psychological dimension of victory and made his radio address not from a polished studio but from a bare military transmitter room, his image grainy but his tone calm, commanding. He framed this not as a coup within the coup, but as a pivot for national pride. We reject foreign puppeteers. Our future must be Burkina. His message struck a chord throughout the country's military and civilian ranks, galvanizing those weary of neo-colonialist interference. Morale soared. Within minutes, soldiers stationed in border camps near Côte d'Ivoire and Mali confirmed they would hold their positions, ready to intercept any aircraft transporting rebel generals. Meanwhile, Traoré unleashed another front: public diplomacy. He instructed trusted envoys to contact neutral missions, the African Union, ECOWAS, UN delegations. Their task: notify them of the plot, secure international condemnation of any foreign-backed regime change, and lock potential air corridors. Phone calls crackled through embassies across continents as Burkina Faso positioned itself not as a military junta clinging to power, but as democracy's guardian under siege from colonial influence. By late afternoon, word circulated that ECOWAS foreign ministers were convening an emergency meeting. The international response began shifting from platitudes to alarm. By early evening, a column of armored vehicles loyal to the conspiracy was sighted heading toward the city. But instead of panic, troops loyal to Traoré moved with coordinated discipline, intercepting the column at a highway junction 50 kilometers out. A tense standoff ensued, guns trained, radios static, but Traoré, broadcasting live on national radio, called not for bloodshed but for loyalty to the constitution. He offered the rebel generals safe passage if they surrendered their arms and submitted to the authority of the transition government. Within the hour, the column halted, 3 officers disarmed, and captured generals were escorted into military custody, a decisive blow that unraveled the conspiracy's backbone. As the night deepened, the attempted kidnapping of the transitional president in his residence in Colpelogo region was thwarted by loyal presidential guards who redirected the attackers into a firefight, a brief, chaotic exchange that ended with rebel officers retreating and 2 of them taken into custody. Traoré personally confirmed the president's safety in a radio broadcast that juxtaposed gravity with calm reassurance, reinforcing the message that the transition was secure. His stoicism became emblematic, an unflinching shield in the face of plundered sovereignty. Late into the night, with the plot unraveling, Traoré convened a televised press conference from the presidential palace's courtyard, flanked by government leaders, military commanders, and civil society representatives. He reframed the attempted coup not as a sign of weakness but as proof that Burkina Faso's revolutionary path was on the right course. They tried to take our country in darkness. We stand here in light, he declared. His words echoed in social media posts across Ouagadougou communities, social media, radio, and diaspora WhatsApp threads. By daybreak, Exactly 26 hours since the plot began, Traoré walked through military and civilian rallies outside the palace, the atmosphere electric with chants of Traoré. Sovereignty now, schoolchildren singing, regional chiefs blessing the transitional government, and vendors offering free sorghum porridge to celebrating crowds. International emissaries arrived to deliver messages of support and non-interference. No foreign minister dared to utter justification for the dead plot. That afternoon, Traoré issued formal arrest warrants for the French-supported officers, froze their assets, and initiated criminal proceedings under Burkina's legal framework. France's embassy issued a guarded denial of involvement, but the momentum had shifted irrevocably. In these 26 hours, Ibrahim Traoré had exposed and dismantled a French-backed coup attempt with clear planning, rapid military execution, strategic media use, deft diplomacy, and public legitimacy. He seized not only the military advantage, but the narrative, transforming what could have been chaos into a defining moment of national pride and self-determination. Burkina Faso's trajectory had changed that night, no longer merely a nation balancing international and regional pressures, but a state that had proven sovereignty isn't given, it's defended, mined, and spoken into being when destiny demands it. And in the aftermath, as the dust settled across Ouagadougou and the last of the rogue officers were flown to military prisons under armed escort, Traoré wasted no time consolidating the moral victory into institutional resolve. He convened a high-level security summit behind closed doors where military officials, legal scholars, youth movement leaders, and key tribal elders sat shoulder to shoulder, a symbolic gesture that the days of siloed governance were over, and there, he announced sweeping reforms, the establishment of a Sovereignty Oversight Council to monitor foreign dealings, a digital transparency platform exposing all foreign aid channels, and an anti-subversion unit reporting directly to the transitional government, aimed at intercepting any future infiltration from diplomatic fronts disguised as development missions. His voice steady but steeled with resolve, Traoré told them, "We are no longer tenants of our own nation. We are the landlords now." Across the capital, murals of Traoré standing firm in military uniform began to appear, painted overnight by youth coalitions who viewed him not as a figurehead, but as a frontline general of ideological warfare against the residue of colonial subjugation. Universities across the Sahel region invited him to speak virtually to students eager to know how. In 26 hours, one man had outmaneuvered what entire regimes had failed to resist for decades. His message was unwavering: preparedness, patriotism, and people. Elsewhere, Western media scrambled to rewrite their early headlines, which had initially speculated about internal instability in Burkina Faso. Now they were forced to acknowledge the calculated efficiency of the coup's exposure, and though they couched their coverage in diplomatic language, analysts privately admitted that Paris had misjudged both the intelligence community and the resolve of a young transitional leader who would rather die standing than rule kneeling. France's soft power efforts in the region began to publicly erode. Student protests erupted in Dakar, Bamako, and Niamey, calling for the expulsion of French diplomats. And in Burkina Faso itself, protesters marched peacefully but defiantly, holding placards with slogans like, "No more puppets," and "Africa for Africans," signaling that this was not just about one failed coup, it was about ending an era. Traoré, though resolute, did not allow the wave of adoration to blind him to the next phase of the challenge. He ordered full audits of military spending, restructured intelligence networks to include independent regional oversight, and doubled funding for local press to ensure narrative sovereignty, understanding that the next coup would likely come not from bullets but from stories twisted to fracture unity. He also took the radical step of inviting whistleblowers within the government to step forward anonymously with information on any remaining foreign influence, offering amnesty to those who cooperated, punishment to those who didn't, and this bold move led to the uncovering of a network of civilian operatives tied to a foreign NGO front that had been funding political disinformation campaigns online. As these details emerged, Traoré's gamble to trust the public over secret courts paid off. The people saw a leader not just unmasking enemies but building institutional antibodies against future subversion. Meanwhile, regional allies who once hesitated to align with Burkina Faso due to pressure from Western powers began to reach out. Guinea offered intelligence sharing, Mali proposed a joint counter-coup training academy, and even Algeria expressed interest in energy cooperation without Western intermediaries. In less than 2 days, Traoré had not only survived an attempted overthrow but ignited a regional doctrine of anti-colonial self-determination that echoed beyond Burkina's borders. He continued to appear rarely on television but often in person, walking markets, addressing students, eating with soldiers, not to project image but to reinforce presence. His leadership style confounded European analysts who couldn't categorize him neatly. Not a populist, not a dictator, not a technocrat, just a soldier who believed freedom must be defended at every gate, whether it be physical, informational, or diplomatic. And so, 26 hours that could have ended in disaster instead birthed a blueprint, that in the age of covert coups and subtle colonialisms, the strongest defense is a people informed, a military loyal, and a leader who knows both the history and the cost of surrender.